Hi, and welcome to Tips and Tech with Tiffany. And today we're going to talk about the importance of owning your own website. And what I mean by that is not having a website, but the importance of actually being the owner of the files of your website, owning the web hosting service. That is very important. That means when you are working with somebody that is developing your website, that you have your own hosting. You know the sign in to the hosting, and you don't have to know all the details on the ins and outs about how that hosting works, but you are the owner. And the host service that I recommend is Bluehost, and I will put that in the comments immediately after today's show. I'll put that in the comments. I was hoping I'd be able to see the comments, at least be able to comment on it. But we're doing something a little different today. It's just me and you. I don't have my computer close by, but I just wanted to come and talk with you about that. It's very important that you own your own hosting service. There are many people that offer services, and they also offer hosting as well. What happens in that case when that person or that company hosts your website, they own access to everything to your website. They own it. So if you want to move to a new host provider, you are at the mercy of the person who owns your files. You're at the mercy of them. Whether, again, it is considered, self-hosted if the company has it, but they're the ones hosting it, not a system like Bluehost or HostGator. Those are the two that I recommend. I recommend you get your website domain registered at GoDaddy, but have it hosted somewhere else like Bluehost or HostGator. So let's think about this scenario. Someone else has been hosting your website for you. You don't know anything about the files. You've never seen behind the scenes. They have it. What happens if something happens to them? What happens to your website then? It could go away. What happens if something happens with their servers on their end, or they mismanage the account or whatever? Your website is at their mercy. So you want to have it hosted. You want to own that and have it for yourself. Now, this is whether you have a website that's being built and coded or a WordPress site. And I always recommend a WordPress website because those are easier for you to personally update yourself, adding pages, doing your blogging, and all that good stuff. WordPress makes that a whole lot easier for you. And I'm talking about WordPress.org. The difference between WordPress.org and WordPress.com is like the difference between owning your home and renting your home. So if you own it, you get to do what you want. And that's where your host, service provider comes in, and all your files sit there. So if you want to move it somewhere else, now you've got access to it and can go wherever you want, get whatever you need because you have all the files. Also noted on the description for today's show, a couple of tips for you with Aweber. Aweber is the email marketing system that we talked about in last week's episode. And I took you through on the screen what that looks like and gave you some tips on that. But I wanted to add two things that actually came up this week. One is to make sure that you're using an email address that is associated with your website, because whether you're using Aweber or another email marketing system like MailChimp or GetResponse, it's always best that it is your email on your domain. For example, it would be Tiffany@virtualhiredhand.com as opposed to virtualhiredhand@gmail.com. And Aweber will actually give you a warning on that to let you know that they prefer you have an email address associated with your website domain. The second tip for Aweber is to use an address that's not your home address. by default, Aweber will pull the address from the billing. And most likely that's going to be your home address. If you have an office, then you don't have anything to worry about. Then that's automatic. If your billing is your office address, then that's automatic. It's your office address. But I like to bring this to my clients' attention because every single email that you send out, whether it's the autoresponder or the newsletter, every single email that goes out will have your address at the very bottom of the email. And I can assure you that you don't want your home address at the bottom of every single autoresponder or newsletter or other email that goes out. So if all you have right now is your home address, you want to get a P.O. box or a UPS store address, an address that is not your home address, because we don't know who's on our email list. And you don't want your address, just kind of out there because it's in an email. So you want to use something that's a bit more secure, like the P.O. box or UPS store address. So those are my two important tips for Aweber. In addition to what we talked about last week, you can go back, watch episode 3. In fact, I want you to binge watch the other episodes. If you haven't seen 1, 2, and 3, go ahead and binge watch those Tips and Tech with Tiffany episode. And I'm actually working to get all of those transcribed and made available on the website, because there's some days you may want to watch the video. There are other days where you may want to read through because you already watched the video, but you want to get to a certain area that I discussed and kind of follow those guidelines and go that route. So we're working on getting all of that for you. They'll actually be going out weekly. I think it was supposed to start this week. Supposed to start this week. Later this week, get that all for you. But those are my big tips for today. Your website, your hosting. I'm going to put the #1 recommended host provider that I like to recommend clients is Bluehost. If you just got to have choices, I'll put the link for HostGator in there. Where do you get your domain registered? Get it registered at GoDaddy, but host it somewhere else. Make sure that you own your stuff. And if you don't have a website and you're like, oh, I don't even have a website. If you don't have a domain name, get you a domain name and then think about how you want to approach your website. If you want a WordPress website, that's something we can definitely help you with. So post in the comments if you have questions about that or interested in getting some help with that. But if you've already got it in place, make sure that you know your login information to your host provider. Notice I'm saying your, stressing the importance of you owning it yourself. And then having that address separate from your home address for all your newsletters and everything will go out from your email marketing system. So just some quick tips today. The past few episodes have been a lot longer, more detailed. We'll get back to that, but I thought it would be a nice change to just pop in, just me, talk to you directly, and really stress the importance of that. So if you have any questions, post those for me in the comments, and I look forward to our next episode, Tips and Tech with Tiffany. Have a great evening.